Welcome to DailyDose.Business. Today, we're really digging into something a lot of you might recognize, hitting major career highs, but feeling pretty wiped out physically and emotionally.
Mm-hmm. It's such a common pattern, isn't it? Especially for high-achieving women. That drive is incredible, but sometimes the personal cost feels, well, steep.
Absolutely. And this deep dive is a bit special. It's actually based on an article I had the chance to co-author with Wendy Wang Kleinfelt.
Ah, Wendy. Yeah.
Wendy's a coach, and her work is laser focused on helping women reconnect with their core strength and confidence. Her own journey really informs everything she does, which makes her insights so powerful for this topic.
Definitely. Having walked that path herself, she has this really valuable perspective on how to build success that actually lasts, that doesn't bring you out.
Exactly. So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to understand how women who are achieving great things can build a sustainable kind of success, one that's really fueled by physical energy and that embodied confidence.
It's shifting away from just looking outwards
Right.
and building up that inner resilience, that foundation.
So here's a question for you listening. Are you hitting your goals, getting the recognition, but maybe feeling a little disconnected from your own power source? If that sounds familiar, well, this deep dive has some crucial ideas for reconnecting. Let's start with maybe a slightly provocative idea. Reframing sexy and power.
Okay. Because usually when we hear sexy, we immediately think physical, maybe even purely sexual, right?
Totally. It's often very narrow, sometimes superficial definition.
And it really limits how we think about women's influence, I think.
It does. But Wendy offers this really compelling alternative definition. For her, being sexy is about being unapologetically confident. It stems from deep self-assurance, high self-worth.
It's an internal thing, not about performance for others.
Precisely. It's a confidence that just radiates outward naturally.
That's such a key difference. It's not trying to fit some external mold. It's rooted in really owning who you are. And that, Wendy says, creates a kind of magnetic presence.
Right? This magnetic presence. And she's clear it's not about looks or fashion, the surface stuff. It's an energy. It comes from feeling internally whole, aligned, not scattered or always striving.
Yeah, it's a completely different source of power, isn't it? Built on self-acceptance, not needing that external clap on the back all the time.
Then that idea of wholeness, it leads right into another key point from Wendy, the alignment imperative. She really stresses that alignment isn't like a destination you reach.
No, not at all. It's not static. It's a daily practice. Wendy talks about consciously checking in each day. Are my actions, my choices actually lined up with my core values, with my bigger purpose?
And she's seen it time and again. When women chase those external markers, the money, the title, the spotlight, without that internal compass, things start to fray. And interestingly, she finds that it often shows up physically first.
The body, it's like the early warning system. Fatigue, weird aches, just feeling off. It's signaling that something's out of whack.
Exactly. It's the body saying, hang on, this direction is not working for us.
Yeah.
And Wendy makes this critical distinction. Look, challenges are part of growth. Sacrifices happen. But, she says, the core of what you do must resonate on an energetic, spiritual, and practical level. The effort needs to feel worth it deep down.
It can't just be about the money or the recognition. There has to be that deeper sense of, yes, this feels right.
That multi-level alignment. It's not just ticking boxes. It's feeling congruent.
Yeah.
And as Wendy points out, this daily check-in, it's not about some new productivity system. It's about honoring the intelligence of your entire being.
Beyond just the brain, yeah. Respecting that gut feeling, that physical feedback.
Which brings us perfectly to the next point. Viewing your body as your command center. It sounds obvious, but Wendy emphasizes how deeply mind and body are connected.
You really can't separate them, can you? They're constantly talking to each other. What happens in one affects the other.
Definitely. And our physical state has a massive impact on our mental game. Wendy notes when you feel physically strong, rested, nourished, your confidence gets a natural boost.
Oh, absolutely. But if you're dealing with, say, chronic pain, or you're constantly exhausted, or your weight feels out of control, that drains energy.
Right. Energy that your brain needs for focus, for creativity, for leadership. It's hard to feel powerful when you physically feel depleted or uncomfortable.
So true. It's tough to operate at peak mental capacity when your body's sending distress signals.
So Wendy really pushes us to rethink the body's role. It's not just a taxi for the brain. It is the command center. It dictates energy levels, clarity, resilience, everything.
It's the foundation. You neglect that, and the whole structure gets wobbly.
And her advice here, it's refreshingly straightforward. Prioritize weightlifting for strength. Focus on a nutrient-dense diet, especially getting enough protein. Hydrate properly, and really guard your sleep and recovery time.
Yeah, it's not about fancy trends. It's the fundamentals. She sees these as non-negotiable pillars for leadership capacity and clear thinking. They're foundational practices for showing up fully.
Okay, so we've got alignment, we've got the body as command center. Next up is another layer Wendy emphasizes, radical accountability. This is about how we own our choices, our energy.
Radical accountability. Wendy defines it as basically taking full ownership of your results, no matter the circumstances. It's stepping away from blame or excuses.
And she tackles that classic one, I don't have time.
Yes, the time excuse.
For high achievers, Wendy argues, it's usually not a literal lack of minutes. It's about where you choose to allocate that time. It's about priorities.
It really boils down to conscious choices, doesn't it? And the language shift, she points out, is powerful, moving from I couldn't because
to I chose to, or I chose not to. It puts you back in the driver's seat.
Big difference in personal power there.
Huge. And Wendy applies this accountability directly to health. Taking care of your body, sleep, food, movement isn't self-indulgent fluff. She positions it as a core business strategy.
Yes, it's an investment in your capacity, your clarity, your longevity in the game. It's essential infrastructure, not an optional extra.
Reframing self-care as strategic investment. Love that. Now, Wendy also brings up something interesting, how relationship status can play a role. The experience for single versus married women entrepreneurs can look quite different.
Yeah, she's observed that. For single entrepreneurs, there might sometimes be more potential for feeling isolated, maybe fewer peers in the same boat, different social dynamics too.
Right. But maybe also more flexibility with time, travel, that sort of thing.
Potentially. And then for married entrepreneurs, Wendy notes the challenge often lies in integrating demanding careers with partnership and family responsibilities.
It's that constant balancing act.
The main takeaway from Wendy here isn't about which is better. It's about recognizing how your specific situation, single, married, partnered, shapes your journey, and then building strategies that actually work for your reality.
Acknowledging the context.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, let's talk about the word holistic. Wendy feels it's often misused, maybe seen as a bit, ooh.
Yeah, it can get lumped in with things that feel less grounded sometimes. But she wants to reclaim its core meaning.
Which, for her, is simply looking at the whole picture. A systems view, understanding that everything is interconnected.
Exactly. She talks about looking for root causes, not just surface symptoms. Problems rarely exist in a vacuum, right? They're part of a bigger system within your life.
All these different parts, work, health, relationships, mindset, they all influence each other.
And thinking that way, with that systems perspective, Wendy says it leads to far more effective solutions because you're addressing the underlying dynamics, not just patching things up.
That holistic view feels especially important when we think about the pressures many women face, the conditioning. Wendy points out how girls are often taught to be, pretty and obedient.
That conditioning runs deep. And it can set up this internal conflict later, this drive for a kind of perfection that doesn't actually exist.
Always trying to be the right way. Smart, but not too smart. Attractive, but not like you tried.
It's exhausting, and Wendy calls this the perfection paradox. The more successful you become, the more pressure you can feel to keep up this perfect image instead of just embodying your real, authentic power.
Right. It's like success increases the performance anxiety.
Which just drains you and pulls you further away from that core strength. Wendy also mentioned that old advice, just to act like a man in business.
Oh, yeah. She remembers getting that advice. But her experience, and I think many women find this, is that it just doesn't work long term. It feels off.
It's inauthentic. Women often have different, equally valid ways of leading, of communicating, of problem solving. Trying to mimic something else creates that misalignment we talked about earlier.
Yeah, you need to find your way, what actually feels powerful and effective for you.
Which leads nicely into another really practical distinction Wendy makes. Standards versus boundaries.
This one's powerful. She argues that focusing on establishing clear standards is way more effective than constantly having to set and defend boundaries.
Explain that a bit more. How does she see the difference?
Well, boundaries are often reactive, right? Someone crosses a line, you push back. Standards are proactive. They define up front. This is how I operate. This is what I expect. This is what my brand stands for.
Okay, so standards are like the upfront rules of engagement you set for yourself and your interactions.
Exactly. Wendy talks about defining standards around your brand values, expected behaviors in relationships, communication styles, how you handle conflict, your core business practices.
Got it. So if your standards are clear and you live by them, they act like a filter. You naturally just don't engage with things or people that fall below those standards.
Precisely. It eliminates the need for a lot of boundary setting because the mismatch is obvious from the start. Wendy puts it perfectly. A standard is strategic. A boundary is reactive.
That saves so much energy you can then use for leading, for creating, instead of constantly policing lines.
It's a much more empowered stance.
Yeah.
Okay, so finally, Wendy ties all this together with the integration imperative. It's about bringing physical vitality, emotional sovereignty, and leadership presence into harmony.
When those pieces click together, she says, it unlocks a different quality of power. It's not just about pushing harder.
Right, it's synergistic. Now, Wendy does acknowledge the research showing women-owned companies often perform well financially, but she adds a note of caution. Don't oversimplify. While stepping into your authentic power creates the best channel for leadership, you still need solid business skills.
Authenticity isn't a magic bullet for profit on its own. It needs to be paired with competence, strategy, all those essential business pieces.
It provides the foundation, the right energy, but you build the house with skills. And the outcome of this integration, Wendy believes, is sustainable success. Success without that constant, grinding striving.
It comes from reconnecting with what she calls the integrated intelligence of body, mind, and authentic presence. Seeing that integration not as a nice-to-have, but as the fundamental infrastructure for thriving long-term.
It's the core shift, really, recognizing that your well-being is your business asset.
Couldn't agree more. It's all connected.
So, wrapping up our deep dive today. The big takeaway, drawing from those co-authored insights with Wendy Kleinfelt, is that real, sustainable power for high-achieving women comes from integrating physical vitality with embodied confidence.
And it's grounded in that daily practice of alignment with your values and taking that radical accountability for your choices and your energy.
Yeah, it's not about piling more onto your plate. It feels more like reconnecting with a power source that's already there, just maybe buried under expectations or burnout.
Reclaiming it.
Which leads us to a final thought for you to chew on. Which is one standard you can maybe define and implement, starting today, that would create a fundamental shift in how you operate, a standard that helps you reclaim your energy, your power.
Think about that interconnectedness, your well-being, your boundaries, your success. How could one clear standard ripple outwards?
Something to consider. That's our deep dive for today, enriched by the expertise of Wendy Wang Kleinfelt. For DailyDose.Business, thanks for joining us.